My name is Caroline Phillips. I'm 40 years old. From the outside, my life looks settled, the kind of settled people envy when they're tired. I live in a 3-bedroom house in suburban San Jose with my boyfriend Daniel and our daughter Olivia, who just turned 10. The neighborhood is quiet. The sidewalks are always clean. On weekday mornings, you can hear sprinklers ticking like soft metronomes and kids laughing behind backpacks too big for their shoulders. I work as a software production director for a tech company here. Long days, constant meetings, the kind of job that never really leaves your brain even after you shut your laptop. Daniel teaches at a local elementary school. He has the patience of a saint and the ability to make a room feel warm just by walking into it. Olivia. Olivia is the best part of both of us. She's bright, determined, and has this way of looking at the world like it's still worth trusting. And most days, our little family is happy. Not perfect, not glossy, but real, full of dinner table jokes, forgotten laundry, and the kind of comfort you don't recognize until you've lived without it. So when people hear what I'm about to tell you, they always ask the same thing. Caroline, why did you go back? And the honest answer is, I thought I could survive it. I thought I could walk into that house, smile for a few hours, collect whatever scraps of normalcy they'd toss my way, and leave without bleeding. I was wrong, because the story I want to share isn't about the life I have now. It's about the night I finally understood something I had avoided admitting my whole life. My birth family didn't just dislike me, they needed me beneath them. And that Christmas, they chose my daughter to make sure I remembered my place. 2 years ago, Christmas 2023 cracked open our family like glass under pressure. Growing up, Christmas at my parents' house had been tradition. My grandfather started it when I was little, one big gathering every year. Relatives, food, laughter, and that warm, sleepy glow you get when you feel safe with people who are yours. When my grandfather was alive, he was the gravity that held us together, and he was the only reason I ever felt like I belonged. He wasn't a loud man. He didn't rant or throw fits. He didn't defend me the way people do in movies. No dramatic speeches, no slamming doors. He defended me the way steady people do, with calm eyes, with quiet authority, with a hand on my shoulder that said, I see you, I believe you, you matter. If my mother snapped at me, Grandpa would say my name once, soft, like a warning, and the room would go still. If my father dismissed me, Grandpa would look over his glasses and ask, Do you hear yourself? Like my dad had just spoken nonsense. He never let them turn me into the family punchline, but Grandpa passed away in 2021. And when he did, something ugly that had been contained, something that had been waiting politely behind smiles, finally stepped forward. After his funeral, my parents didn't grieve the way I expected. They didn't soften. They didn't cling to family. They hardened, and then they stopped pretending. Daniel and I started avoiding family gatherings after that. We'd make excuses, work, Olivia's schedule, travel, flu season, whatever we could say without igniting a war. Most years we stayed home, just the three of us. Our own food, our own laughter, our own peace. But Christmas 2023, they didn't let us disappear. A week before Christmas, my phone rang while I was folding laundry. Olivia was humming to herself in the living room, practicing piano scales under her breath like she always did. Daniel was grading papers at the kitchen table, his glasses sliding down his nose. I remember glancing at the caller ID and feeling something in my stomach tighten. Mom. I stared at it a second too long. Daniel looked up from his papers, caught my expression, and didn't say anything. He just watched me with that quiet concern that always made me feel exposed. I answered, Hello? Her voice was cold from the first syllable, like she'd been waiting all year to speak to me and had no intention of wasting kindness on it. This year, she said, you're coming to the Christmas party. Bring Daniel. Bring Olivia. No greeting, no warmth, just an order. I swallowed. Mom, we already made plans. We're staying home this year. Silence on the line, short, sharp. Then she spoke again, slower, like she was talking to someone stupid. No, Caroline, you're coming. We're inviting relatives and important business partners. Your father and I need the family to look united. The word united sounded like a joke in her mouth. I felt heat rise up my neck. So you don't want us there because you miss us. You want us there as decoration. Her inhale came through the phone like a warning. Don't start, she snapped. Just show up. Don't embarrass us. I'm not coming, I said, firmer. I'm not doing this again. That was when her tone changed. Not louder, more dangerous. Controlled. Don't let your absence make us lose face, she said. And then, after a pause that felt deliberate, she added, "Do you understand me?" The words were simple, but the message underneath them was the same one I'd been hearing since I was 18. Obey or pay for it. I didn't answer. My throat had tightened so much I couldn't make sound without shaking. Finally, she ended the call with a clipped, "I'll see you on Christmas," as if my refusal had never happened. The line went dead. I stood there holding my phone, staring at the blank screen. The laundry in my hand slipped a little. I didn't even notice. Daniel was on his feet now, moving quietly toward me. "Was that your mom?" I nodded, like the movement cost me something. He didn't press for details right away. He took the shirt from my hands and set it on the couch, then guided me to sit. Only after I'd taken a breath did he ask, "What did she want?" I looked at Olivia. She was on the rug with her music notebook, legs crossed, pencil tucked behind her ear, blissfully unaware. Her face was soft with concentration. Safe. I lowered my voice. "She wants us at the party." Daniel's jaw tightened. "As family?" I let out a bitter laugh that didn't sound like me. "As proof." He exhaled slowly. "Caroline." I told her no, I added quickly, like I needed him to know I hadn't folded. I told her we're staying home. And she threatened me. I said it bluntly because sugarcoating it would make it feel less real. Not directly, but you know how she does. Daniel's eyes softened in that way that made my chest ache. He reached for my hand, thumb rubbing over my knuckles. "You don't have to go." I wanted to believe him. But a week before Christmas, when your own mother calls and reminds you she can still pull strings in your life, it doesn't matter how old you are. You still feel 18, and that was the beginning of it, the root of everything. When I was 18, I made a choice. A simple choice that shouldn't have turned into a lifelong sentence. My parents had a plan for me and my older sister Lauren. The Phillips Family Company wasn't just a business. It was the family identity. Dinner conversations were always about growth, competition, reputation, legacy. My father spoke about profits like they were proof of love. My mother treated public image like oxygen. They wanted both of us to study business administration or finance. The goal was clear: graduate, come home, and work for the family company. Lauren did exactly what they wanted. She was always good at being what people expected: polished, agreeable, careful. She wore their approval like jewelry, and they adored her for it. But me, I was different. I loved computers. I loved building things that didn't require smiling through fake conversations. I loved logic, structure, the clean satisfaction of solving a problem that didn't care who your parents were. So at 18, I told them I was going to study information technology. I still remember my mother's expression, like I'd spit on the family crest. My father didn't yell at first. He got quiet, and his quiet was worse than shouting. "You're throwing your future away," he said. "I'm building my own," I replied. That was the day they stopped seeing me as a daughter. Not immediately, not openly, but slowly, like a dimmer switch turning down. Lauren became their pride. And I became the mistake they didn't know how to erase. The only reason I survived those years without drowning was my grandfather. He told me, "Don't let them shrink you, Caroline. They're loud because they're scared of what they can't control." Back then, as long as Grandpa was alive, my parents didn't dare show their favoritism too openly. They kept their cruelty polite, hidden behind sarcasm and concern. But after he died, they stopped hiding. And by Christmas 2023, I hadn't walked into that house in almost a year. That's why the call felt like a hand closing around my throat. That night, after Olivia went to bed, Daniel and I sat on the couch in the dim glow of the Christmas tree lights. The house smelled like cinnamon and pine. Outside, the street was quiet. Inside, my mind was screaming. Daniel listened while I told him everything. My mother's tone, my father's obsession with face, the implication that refusing would come with consequences. When I finished, I expected him to say what he usually said: "We're not going. They don't deserve us." Instead, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said gently, "Maybe we should go." I turned to him sharply. "What?" He didn't flinch. "Not because they deserve it, because you do." I stared at him, confused, anger and fear tangling together. "I don't understand." Daniel leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You've spent years carrying this like it's your fault, like if you were just different. They'd love you, right? I don't want you to spend the rest of your life wondering if you should have shown up one last time and said goodbye on your terms." My throat tightened. "And what about Olivia?" His eyes flicked toward the hallway where our daughter slept. "We protect her. The second they cross a line, we leave." I wanted to argue. I wanted to say no, to shut the door on that whole part of my life. But Daniel's voice wasn't pressure, it was empathy. He wasn't trying to please my parents. He was trying to free me. And that's the part that still breaks my heart. Because the night I finally listened to him was the night my parents chose to hurt the one person I would burn the world down to protect. I lay awake until almost 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, while Daniel's breathing stayed steady beside me. In the dark, my thoughts circled like vultures. If we go, they'll humiliate us. If we don't go, they'll punish us somehow. If we go, Olivia will see too much. If we don't go, I'll always wonder. At some point, exhaustion won. And in that quiet, defeated moment, I made the decision. Fine, I whispered into the darkness. We'll go. Daniel shifted slightly, half awake. Are you sure? No, but I said yes. And as soon as the word left my mouth, I felt it. That faint, sick intuition. The kind that doesn't shout, it just settles. A warning, a cold truth. That Christmas party would not be uncomfortable. It would be catastrophic. And I had no idea. It would be the last time I ever considered them my family. We arrived at my parents' house a little before 5 o'clock p.m. The sky was already dark, the kind of early winter darkness that presses down on everything and makes houses glow like staged displays. White Christmas lights outlined the roof perfectly, too perfectly. The lawn was trimmed, the wreath centered, the windows shining like nothing ugly had ever happened inside those walls. From the outside, it was flawless. I sat in the passenger seat with my hands folded in my lap, staring at the front door like it might open and swallow us whole. Daniel turned off the engine but didn't move right away. He looked at me instead, searching my face. You okay? I forced a smile that felt brittle. Let's just get through it. In the back seat, Olivia was adjusting the sleeves of her dress, smoothing imaginary wrinkles. She'd insisted on wearing the blue one, said it made her feel grown up. Her hair was neatly braided, and there was a quiet excitement in her eyes that made my chest tighten. She still thought Christmas meant family. I stepped out of the car first, my heels clicking against the driveway I'd walked on 1,000 times growing up. Each step felt heavier than it should have, like the ground itself was resisting me. As soon as we opened the door, warm air rushed out, along with the sounds of laughter, clinking glasses, and overlapping conversations. The smell of roasted meat and expensive wine hit me instantly. For a split second, a dangerous thought crossed my mind. Maybe I was wrong. But then I saw my mother. She emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a pristine white towel, eyes already scanning us. Not with joy, not with relief, but with appraisal. Like we were late deliveries she wasn't sure she wanted to accept. Before she could speak, Aunt Rose, my father's younger sister, hurried over with a wide smile. She crouched slightly in front of Olivia, touching her shoulder gently. Look at you, she said warmly. You've grown so much. You're beautiful. Olivia smiled shyly. Thank you. That small kindness almost undid me. My cousin Michael came over next, shaking Daniel's hand and giving me an awkward half-hug. Caroline, he said, genuine concern in his voice. It's been a while. How's work? Busy, I replied, but good. I heard you're managing big projects now, he added, impressed. Tech stuff, right? I nodded, grateful for the normalcy. But from the corner of the room, I caught it. Whispers. Not even subtle ones. I heard she refused to work for the family company, and now she's barely scraping by. She always thought she was smarter than everyone else. What a waste, such a shame. I didn't turn my head. I didn't respond. I had learned a long time ago that reacting only made them bolder. Then my parents finally stepped fully into the room. My father, Edward, looked at me like a stranger he was forced to acknowledge. His gaze flicked over Daniel, over Olivia, then back to me. Well, he said flatly, at least you still remember you have parents. The words landed hard. Not welcome, not I'm glad you came, just judgment. Before I could respond, my mother stepped closer. She didn't hug Olivia, didn't ask how she'd been, didn't comment on her dress. She looked directly at me and said, Find somewhere to sit, don't hover around, and don't draw attention to yourselves. Her eyes hardened. There are important guests here tonight. Don't embarrass us. I felt something cold spill through my chest. I opened my mouth before I could stop myself. If you're so worried about us embarrassing you, why did you insist we come? The air around us shifted instantly. My mother's lips thinned, my father's jaw clenched. Before either of them could reply, a familiar voice slid in smoothly from behind. Of course she had to be here, Lauren said, stepping into view with her perfectly styled hair and effortless smile. Otherwise, people might think our family isn't united. Her husband stood beside her, nodding politely, while she looked at me with thinly veiled satisfaction. I met her eyes. Unity built on pretending isn't unity. She tilted her head, smirking. You always were dramatic. My mother snapped sharply. Enough! This isn't the time. Her tone was warning, not protective. Aunt Rose stepped in quickly, trying to smooth the tension. Come on, everyone. It's Christmas. Let's be happy. Michael nodded. Yeah, it's been too long since we've all been together. My parents and Lauren turned away almost immediately, faces brightening as they moved toward the door to greet arriving guests. Just like that, we were dismissed. I stood there for a moment, feeling like a ghost in my own childhood home. Daniel leaned close, his voice low. We can still leave. I looked at Olivia. She was standing quietly beside him, hands clasped, eyes moving around the room, absorbing more than she should have to. I shook my head. Let's just sit, for now. We found seats near the edge of the room, away from the center of attention. I positioned Olivia between Daniel and me instinctively, like a shield. As more guests arrived, the atmosphere shifted into something performative. Men in tailored suits, women with sharp smiles and expensive perfume, people whose opinions mattered to my parents' business more than anything else. From our corner, I watched my parents transform. My father's stiff posture loosened. My mother laughed too loudly. Lauren moved through the room like she owned it, introducing herself and her son with practiced pride. At one point, I saw my mother gesture subtly in our direction while speaking to a group of guests. Not introducing us, displaying us, like proof of a story she wanted them to believe. A middle-aged man with gray hair clapped my sister on the shoulder. Lauren, I heard you led the Southern Expansion Project. Very impressive. Lauren smiled modestly. Oh, it was a team effort. I was just lucky. My parents beamed. I sat still, hands folded around my glass of water, feeling smaller by the second. At 6:12 p.m., my father stood and tapped his glass. The room quieted. Thank you all for coming, he said, voice rich with authority. We're honored you could join us for our family's Christmas celebration. Glasses clinked. Applause followed. I raised my glass mechanically, but a strange restlessness crawled under my skin. The first part of dinner passed quietly. I spoke with relatives. Daniel chatted politely. Olivia ate carefully, trying her best to behave. But curiosity lingered. I could feel eyes drifting toward us, hear murmurs starting and stopping. Then it happened. A guest around 50 leaned toward my father, cutting his steak casually. Edward, he said, I know you have 2 daughters. Lauren's clearly doing incredible things with the company. What about your other daughter? The table went silent. Every fork paused midair. My father didn't hesitate. He took a slow sip of wine and said coolly, Caroline works with computers all day. She's not nearly as capable as her sister. Heat flooded my face. I felt Daniel's hand tighten around mine under the table. Steady, grounding. Before I could speak, another guest chimed in brightly. And the grandchildren? I imagine they're all remarkable. My mother's face lit up. Oh, of course, she said eagerly. Lauren's son is extraordinary. He just won first place in his 2nd grade chess competition. He's also learning French, Spanish, and Italian. Applause followed. Lauren smiled proudly. Then a woman seated near me turned, her expression kind. She looked at Olivia. And this must be Caroline's daughter. She looks very intelligent. For one fragile second, hope flared. Then my mother laughed. Not a soft laugh. Not an awkward one. A sharp, cruel burst of sound that cut through the room like glass. When she stopped, she looked straight at Olivia. And then at me. And she said clearly, coldly, for everyone to hear, Caroline's daughter is just like Caroline. She paused. A disgrace to our family. The world stopped. For a moment, I didn't understand what I was hearing. Not because the words were unclear, but because my mind refused to accept that my mother had just said them. Out loud. In front of nearly 40 people, about a child. About my child. The room went deathly still. No one laughed. No one spoke. Even the clinking of cutlery stopped, as if the house itself had flinched. I felt Daniel's body stiffen beside me. His hand, which had been warm and grounding just seconds earlier, began to tremble. I could feel the tension running through him, the restraint it took for him not to stand up and shout. But all I could hear was Olivia's breathing. Shallow, uneven. I turned slowly toward her. She hadn't cried yet. Not right away. Her small shoulders were rigid, her lips pressed together so tightly they'd turned white. Her eyes were locked on her plate, as if she could disappear into the pattern of the china if she stared long enough. Then a tear slipped down her cheek, and another. She didn't make a sound. She didn't sob. She just sat there, trying to be brave in a room full of adults who had just taught her exactly how cruel people could be. Something inside me broke. Not shattered, collapsed. I'd endured years of insults, comparisons, dismissive comments, and public humiliations. I'd swallowed them all because somewhere deep down, a part of me still hoped for approval. But watching my mother do this to my daughter, watching Olivia shrink into herself because of a woman who was supposed to protect her, that ended everything. I slammed my hand down on the table. The sound cracked through the room like a gunshot. Several guests jumped in their seats. My father snapped his head toward me, fury already blazing in his eyes. "What do you think you're doing?" he barked. Lauren scoffed loudly, shaking her head. "See? She always causes trouble. Always has." I pushed my chair back slightly, my hands shaking, not with fear, but with rage so sharp it made my vision blur. Before I could speak, Daniel leaned forward, his voice low but urgent. "Caroline." Then Olivia finally looked up. Her eyes met mine, red and shining, filled with confusion and pain and a question no child should ever have to ask without words. Why did Grandma say that about me? That was it. Every instinct in my body screamed the same thing. Get her out, now. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "We're leaving," I said, my voice tight but controlled. My mother scoffed. "Don't be dramatic." I ignored her completely. I reached for Olivia's coat, kneeling slightly to her level. "Hey," I said softly, forcing calm into my voice. "Sweetheart, we're going home." She nodded immediately, relief flashing across her face even through the tears. Daniel stood as well, placing himself subtly between Olivia and the table, like a barrier. As we turned to go, my father stood up so fast his chair toppled backward. "Caroline," he shouted, his voice booming through the room, "how dare you walk out like this? Do you have any idea how this looks?" I stopped, not because I wanted to engage, but because I needed him to hear this. I turned slowly. "You don't get to talk about how it looks after what she just said to my daughter." My mother folded her arms. "If you can't handle the truth." "That's enough," Daniel said sharply, his calm finally cracking. "She's a child." That was when Lauren laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh, please," she said, waving a dismissive hand. "You're all being so sensitive. Mom didn't mean anything by it." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time I saw exactly what she was. Not confident, not accomplished, just cruel and protected. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I took Olivia's hand and walked out. Behind us, my father was still shouting. My mother was still muttering about embarrassment. Someone tried to smooth things over, someone else whispered, but none of it mattered anymore. The cold night air hit my face like a slap when we stepped outside. I buckled Olivia into the back seat with shaking hands. She wiped her cheeks quickly, trying to smile. "I'm okay," she whispered, like she didn't want to worry us. My heart shattered all over again. Daniel got into the driver's seat, silent, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. We pulled away from the house without another word. The streetlights blurred past. No one spoke. The only sound was Olivia's quiet sniffles and the low hum of the engine. After about 50 meters, I told Daniel to stop. He glanced at me sharply. "Caroline?" "I forgot something," I said. It wasn't a lie, just not something he could carry for me. I turned in my seat and met Olivia's eyes. I forced a smile I didn't feel. "Stay here with Daddy, okay? I'll be right back." She nodded, trusting me without hesitation. Daniel reached out and grabbed my wrist gently but firmly. "Caroline, don't do anything you'll regret." I covered his hand with mine. "I won't." That part was true. I stepped out of the car and started walking back toward the house. Each step felt lighter. Freer. The anger that had been boiling inside me all evening had crystallized into something sharp and clear. I wasn't going back to beg. I wasn't going back to argue. I was going back to end this. By the time I reached the front door, the laughter inside had resumed, forced, brittle, pretending nothing had happened. I pushed the door open without knocking. Conversations died instantly. Every head turned toward me. Lauren was the first to speak, sneering openly. "Wow, look who's back." My father staggered slightly as he stood, his face flushed with wine and fury. "Get out," he slurred. "You've caused enough trouble tonight." I didn't say a word. I walked straight through the room, straight to the table. And then I grabbed the edge of it and flipped it. The table went over with a thunderous crash. Platters of food flew through the air. Wine glasses shattered. Porcelain plates exploded against the hardwood floor, scattering white shards like bone. Red wine splashed across tablecloths and designer dresses, soaking through years of polished appearances in seconds. The sound was deafening. Screams erupted. Chairs scraped backward. Someone shouted my name. But I didn't move. I stood there, breathing hard, my hands still gripping the edge of the overturned table, as if it were the last physical connection to everything I had carried for decades. Silence followed, thick, suffocating. My mother's face had drained of color. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out at first. When she finally found her voice, it shook with fury. "Get out!" she screamed, pointing at me with a trembling finger. "Get out of my house! You've humiliated us enough!" Before I could respond, my father lunged. He shoved me hard in the chest. I stumbled backward and fell, the impact knocking the breath from my lungs. Pain flared through my shoulder as I hit the floor. For a split second, I saw him above me, his face red, twisted with rage, spit flying as he shouted words I couldn't even process. "This is what you've always been," he snarled. "A disgrace." I could have fought back. I knew that. Even as I lay there, stunned, I knew I was stronger than him now, healthier, clear-headed. But I didn't raise a hand, because no matter what he had become, he was still my father. And I refused to become what they already believed I was. Lauren rushed in next, grabbing his arm. "Dad, stop. She's crazy." Then hands were everywhere. Aunt Rose pulled my father away, crying out for him to calm down. Michael and 2 guests restrained Lauren as she tried to shove past them. Voices overlapped in panic and disbelief.
Enough!
"What is wrong with you people? Someone call security." I pushed myself up slowly, ignoring the sting in my shoulder, ignoring the ache spreading through my ribs. When I stood, the room went quiet again. Food littered the floor. Broken glass crunched beneath my shoes. The air smelled like wine and fear. I looked around the room at the guests. Business partners, investors, people who had watched silently while my mother humiliated a child. And I made a decision. If they wanted a show, I would give them the truth. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, my voice steady despite the chaos, "I think you deserve to know what kind of family you're doing business with." My father tried to interrupt. "Caroline, shut up!" I turned to him sharply. "No, you've had 30 years to speak. Now it's my turn." I faced the room again. "You see a successful family," I continued. "A united front, a legacy." I laughed once, humorless. "That's a lie." Murmurs rippled through the guests. I told them everything. I told them about being pushed aside the moment I chose a different career, about being treated like an embarrassment because I refused to work for the family company, about the years of comparisons, the subtle cruelty, the open favoritism toward Lauren. I told them about the phone call a week earlier, about being ordered to attend tonight so my parents wouldn't lose face. I told them about being instructed to sit quietly, to not speak, to not exist. Then my voice dropped. "And tonight," I said, "my mother crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed." I gestured toward the empty chair where Olivia had been sitting. She publicly called my 10-year-old daughter a disgrace. Gasps filled the room. My mother screamed, "You're twisting my words!" I turned to her. "Did you or did you not say them?" She froze. I faced the guests again. "My daughter just won first place in a statewide piano competition for children under 10. A ripple of shock ran through the room. One woman covered her mouth. "Wait, that girl? She was in the paper last month." "Yes," another guest murmured. "I remember that article." Lauren's face went pale. I wasn't finished. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out my phone. "There's something else you should know," I said calmly. I opened my banking app and scrolled. Then I handed the phone to Michael. "Can you read what you see?" He hesitated, confused. Then his eyes widened. "Savings certificate," he read slowly. "Account holder, Caroline Phillips. Amount, $10 million. The room exploded. People stood up. Voices overlapped. "That can't be real." $10 million. How is that possible? I walked over and showed the screen to the nearest guests. One by one, they confirmed it. When I finally turned toward my parents and Lauren, their faces were unrecognizable. Shock, shame, fear. "My personal savings," I said evenly, "are worth 5 times more than this family company." My mother sank into a chair. Lauren's lips moved, but no sound came out. Then a man near the head of the table stood. "Edward," he said coldly, "I'm canceling our contract." My father's knees nearly buckled. "What? You can't—" "I won't work with people who publicly abuse children," the man replied. "Not under any circumstances." And just like that, the dominoes began to fall. The first man to walk away didn't look back. He set his napkin down carefully, like this was a business meeting that had simply reached its conclusion, not a family implosion unfolding in real time. He adjusted his suit jacket, nodded once to me, not to my parents, and headed for the door. That single gesture broke something fragile in the room. Another guest stood, then another. A woman near the window spoke next, her voice tight with disgust. "Margaret, I watched you mock a child tonight. I can't associate my company with that." She turned to my father. "Please have your legal team contact mine. We'll discuss termination terms." My mother opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her hands were trembling now, fingers clutching the edge of the chair as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. My father's composure finally shattered. "Wait," he said desperately. standing and raising both hands. This is a misunderstanding. It was just a family joke. Emotions ran high. A joke? Another man snapped. You called your own granddaughter a disgrace. Silence followed. Lauren rushed forward, panic flashing across her usually flawless face. Please, she said quickly, forcing a smile that looked painful now. My parents didn't mean it. You know how families argue. Don't insult our intelligence, a guest interrupted coldly. We saw what happened. One by one they spoke. Some were calm, some were furious. Some offered compensation just to sever ties immediately. I'll pay the penalty fee, a woman said flatly. I want my name nowhere near this company. I'm canceling effective immediately. So am I. Contracts worth millions dissolved in minutes. Each declaration landed like another blow to my parents' carefully constructed world. I stood there, strangely still, watching the power drain from their faces, watching the people they had spent decades impressing turn away, not because of financial missteps, not because of competition, but because of morality. That irony tasted bitter and satisfying all at once. Then Matthew Davidson stepped forward. He was one of the most respected partners my parents had. Quiet, influential, the kind of man whose approval opened doors. He had sat silently all night. My mother looked at him with desperate hope. Matthew, please. He didn't even glance at her. Instead, he turned to me. You're a good mother, he said simply. The room went completely still. I stayed, he continued, because I wanted to see what you would do. Many people suffer quietly. You didn't. His voice softened. You protected your child. My throat tightened. I'm canceling my contract, he added, finally looking at my parents, and I'll make sure others know why. My father looked like he'd been punched. Lauren whispered, No. Matthew placed a hand briefly on my shoulder before walking toward the door. Your daughter will remember tonight, he said quietly, and she'll remember who stood up for her. After he left, the exodus accelerated. Handshakes, apologies, sympathetic looks. Some guests stopped to tell me they were sorry. Others simply nodded, eyes filled with understanding. Even relatives began to drift away. Aunt Rose hugged me tightly, whispering, I'm so sorry I didn't stop her sooner. Michael squeezed my hand. You did the right thing. Then they were gone. The door closed, and suddenly the house was eerily quiet. Only the ticking of the wall clock remained. Broken glass crunched beneath my feet as I turned to face what was left of my family. My parents sat frozen. Lauren stood rigid beside them, her son clinging to her leg, confused and scared. My mother broke first. She screamed. Are you satisfied now? Her voice cracked, raw with desperation. You've destroyed us. Something inside me loosened. For the first time in my life, I felt no guilt. Yes, I said calmly, I am. I didn't wait for a response. I turned and walked out of the house where I had been raised, past the shattered remains of a legacy built on cruelty and control. Each step toward the door felt lighter, freer. I didn't look back. When I returned to the car, Daniel was waiting with Olivia curled against him in the back seat. She looked up as I opened the door. Mom, she asked softly, where did you go? I knelt beside her, brushing her hair back gently. I went to make sure no one ever talks to you like that again. She studied my face, then nodded, trusting me completely. Daniel met my eyes in the rearview mirror. Everything okay? Yes, I said, climbing into the passenger seat. I'll explain when we get home. As the car pulled away, the house shrank behind us, smaller, darker, finally powerless. And I knew something irreversible had happened. But the story wasn't over yet. We didn't speak much on the drive home. Daniel kept both hands on the wheel, his posture steady, focused on the road ahead. Olivia leaned against the window, exhaustion finally overtaking the adrenaline that had carried her through the night. The city lights slid past us in long, quiet streaks, and with every mile, the weight in my chest eased just a little more. When we pulled into our driveway, the house greeted us with familiar warmth. Soft yellow light glowed through the windows. The porch creaked in the same way it always did. Everything was exactly as we had left it. And yet, I felt like a different person stepping inside. After Olivia was tucked into bed, her breathing even, her face peaceful again, Daniel and I sat together on the couch. The Christmas tree lights blinked slowly, rhythmically, like a heartbeat. Tell me, he said gently. So I did. I told him about flipping the table, about my father's rage, about the moment I decided I would no longer protect their reputation at the cost of my child's dignity. I told him about the savings, about the contracts collapsing one by one, about the looks on my parents' faces when they finally understood they no longer had power over me. When I finished, Daniel leaned back and let out a breath he'd clearly been holding. Then he laughed. Not mockingly, not cruelly. Relieved. I wish I could have seen their faces, he said. I smiled for the first time that night. A real one. But the smile didn't last long. Daniel's expression grew serious. They won't let this go. I nodded. I know. And I was ready. In the days that followed, my phone became a weapon. Missed calls, voicemails, emails filled with rage, guilt, denial, and bargaining. My parents tried everything. Threats, apologies, blame. Lauren sent long messages about how I'd overreacted and destroyed the family. I didn't respond. Instead, I called a lawyer. With witness testimony from that night and clear evidence of psychological harm toward a child, the court moved faster than I expected. The restraining order was granted without hesitation. When the paperwork came through, I felt something settle into place. A boundary. Not just legal, but emotional. I blocked every number, every email, every account. For the first time in my life, silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like peace. 2 years have passed since that Christmas. Olivia is 12 now. Confident, expressive, and unafraid to take up space. She still plays piano, still loves music, but more importantly, she trusts herself. The wound my mother tried to carve into her healed because it was never allowed to fester. Daniel and I married quietly the following spring. And now, as I write this, I'm 7 months pregnant. Our second daughter will be here soon. We've already chosen her name. Harper. Sometimes I catch Daniel watching me talk to my belly, smiling softly, and I know, deep in my bones, that this is the family I was always meant to build. As for my parents, their company didn't survive. Word spread fast in the business world. Reputation is everything, and once it cracks, it doesn't repair easily. Contracts disappeared. Doors closed. The house they once flaunted went on the market. They moved out of state, far from the whispers they could no longer control. Lauren left too. I heard she took a job far below the life she once bragged about. I don't know if she learned anything. And honestly, I don't care. A few weeks ago, I shared this story anonymously online. The responses were divided. Some people called me brave, a mother who chose her child over blood. Others called me cold, vindictive. Said I destroyed my parents' lives and should have forgiven them. Maybe they're right. Maybe they're wrong. All I know is this. I protected my daughter. I chose peace over approval. And I would do it again, every single time. If you've ever been made to feel small by the people who were supposed to love you, if you've ever stayed silent to keep the peace while it destroyed you, if you've ever had to choose between blood and safety, know this. Walking away doesn't make you heartless. Sometimes